Bye for now.
Have a good weekend.
Good. Is that right? Say
You said to say bye for now. That was
Bye for
good.
now.
And then I say,
Yeah.
have a good weekend.
Right. Coming up, he's done it again. To an industry which thrives on complexity, Marc Pritchard brings a very simple message. Hello and welcome to IDCom's MediaSnack, episode 72. So this week, Marc Pritchard delivered the third part of his trilogy, which was developing his media transparency action plan.
That's right.
Addressing the agency community this time.
That's right. So he was addressing the broader agency community, but we're going to look at the simplicity of the message that he shared with the media stakeholders in the audience.
Yeah, indeed. All coming up on today's MediaSnack in just the time it takes to eat a sandwich. So let's crack into this. So you've probably been following the story this year, which is that Marc Pritchard, Chief Brand Officer of Procter & Gamble, world's largest advertiser, and Marc, perhaps the most influential, certainly one of the most influential marketers in the world, has been on a little world tour, and sharing P&G's vision, but also his in his role as the chair of the ANA, the ANA's vision for improving media transparency. Yeah. And so he's laid out in the first two speeches the details of a media action plan to drive transparency. The first speech in January was at the IAB, really talking to a very much digital audience. Mm-hmm. His second speech a few weeks back was at the ANA's media conference, which I was attending, where he addressed the marketing and the media director community. And then this week he's been in Los Angeles at the 4As, which is the agency's trade body big conference. And so he had a keynote address there, which has been called the trilogy. This is the third part of this speech. Yeah,
I mean, what I've found interesting, I think, and unique about all three of his speeches is that he's managed to boil it down into its simplest possible forms. And you know, never was that better illustrated in what we've read of his delivery to the 4As.
Yeah.
I mean, to the media community, he just said four simple things.
Yeah.
Right?
It sounds like this is just common sense.
This is it.
Yeah.
But you know, he's so informed on the perspective that he's able to distill it into manageable sound bites. But he's simply just said, you know, absorb the complexity, right? That's your job. Allow us marketeers to make the right smart decisions. He said, organize yourselves with the right capabilities to enable us to do the best possible work. Yeah. And we will pay you fairly for it. Yeah. And he said, get your houses in order first, right? Allow us to trust the decisions that you make, and then you can innovate. Yeah. I mean, just really, really simple instruction that everybody should be able to absorb. But in a world of hyper complexity, you know, dragging it down to its most simplest forms, I think is the genius in what he's delivered.
And it's much needed. And we, you know, of course, we're an industry which just thrives on complexity, and if anything, you know, has profited in large part from creating complexity. And I think what Marc's represented is just the common moans amongst marketers and the frustrations, but he's able to, in only a way that somebody with great command of their subject and great kind of knowledge and wisdom, I guess, as well, can simplify down to some just really basic principles. So, you know, this was probably of the three speeches, you know, maybe the most sensitive potentially, because he was taking this message directly out to the agency community. You know, and this was, you know, whereas the two speeches have very much been calls to actions for marketers, this was specifically directed at the agency community. And he made some very simple requirements, you know, as you've just discussed, you know, which is the complexity is the agency's problem and they have to fix it. Again, it sounds like, you know, he has this impatient kind of tone. He's laying down, in part, I think, an olive branch to say, listen, we're not anti-agency, we're not attacking agencies, we've cut our rosters down. But we want to view you as partners, strategic partners.
And that's
to
what
our
he said at
business.
the beginning, right? So his entire platform for delivery was, you are our most important partners.
Yeah.
You know, that was the moment that he embraced the agency community.
Yeah. And he wants them to just behave a bit more like that.
Yeah.
So whilst laying, it was half olive branch, and I think in half, laying down the gauntlet, there was a challenge, definitely to media agencies, which we'll come to in a second, to say you have to change to be deeply invested in our business. And the quid pro quo of that is Marc's commitment that agencies should be paid fairly.
Right.
He reiterated that it's not in anyone's interest to have unprofitable agencies, but that the fair payment has to be in consideration of value.
Yeah, that's right. He talked about talent, didn't he? He said that they're going to relook at a lot of their remuneration structures within P&G, and that they will be rewarding their agencies for the talent that is put on their business.
Yeah.
Again, a reflection of how important he sees his marketing agency stakeholders in driving future business growth.
Yeah.
I mean, great talent will drive marketing success.
Yeah.
We know that.
Exactly. And so a lot of the message, of course, was aimed at the creative community, because Marc's talked a lot about needing craft back in marketing and avoiding crappy advertising. And again, he used this head fake kind of technique to dispel some myths and to kind of bat away some objections that might have come from the industry. So there's a lot of focus on creative talent, the need for creativity to grow brands, and the impact that can have. And then he switched his focus into talking then about media.
Yeah.
Now, really, his first two speeches were really largely aimed at media. And so what was his kind of main message to the media agency community?
It was allow us to work with media agency partners that have the right capabilities and skill sets to enable us to make the right decisions. So he was talking about, he didn't want the fragmentation of media agencies and siloed approaches within organisations. He wanted to trust that he had the right agency partners with the right capabilities to enable him to make the right decisions. Yeah. So, the challenge was, absorb the complexity. Don't push that on you. That's your challenge. Yeah. He referenced the fact that there are no print agencies or out-of-home agencies. Why are there digital specific agencies?
Yeah. And that's a I think how you would then take that. I can imagine sitting in the audience. We weren't able to go to this one, obviously being in LA, but and also not having been invited to go, which is another problem. But there we go. Maybe one day they'll let us in. But if you're there, if you're running an agency and you're responsible for a particularly media agency now, you've got a clear idea of what you need to do to work not only with P&G, but the fact that Marc's increasingly I think representing the sentiment of marketers. He cut right down to the bone with media. It was there's no room for any confusion. And he said quite clearly, stop innovating to media agencies. Stop innovating. Job one is to drive. You need to own transparency.
It's about leading transparency. Get the house in order first. It is the responsibility of the agency community, and in particular the media agencies, to get the transparency issue sorted. Yeah. And what he was saying, I think, is that once that is addressed and trust is re-established, then you're in a footing for true partnership. Yeah. And then innovate as much as you like, and P&G, I'm sure, will support the agencies as they innovate. Yeah. But in order for that trust to be established, they have to deal with the transparency issue. Yeah. And that was such a clear instruction to the agency community.
Yeah. And it's going to be really interesting to see how they react, because we're approaching a year on from the ANA publishing their media transparency guidelines. Mm-hmm. There's been lots of obviously discussion for the last 2 years really about transparency in media. It's been the kind of obsessive subject for anyone in the kind of media industry. We've had very little noise and message come out of any of the media agency groups really about this, certainly with a kind of point of view and a principle on it. Will this trigger some action? Will this break that break the mold in some way, where we see an agency step out into with a clear transparency agenda, with a clear transparency message, rather than perhaps avoiding that head on. I'm hoping that will then produce some good, robust and honest and frank kind of discussions now, because I think this is a good time. And Marc has now he's kind of laid out the rules of the game. Is that their demands from the media agency community is that transparency is job one. You'd assume that he will back that up, or the company will back that up, and reward and incentivize and partner with agencies prepared to offer on those terms.
And remember, there's still a number of markets, not least the UK, where Procter & Gamble, the hugely prized Procter & Gamble account, is still in play. So we'll see how that one runs out. The other interesting observation from all of the three speeches that he's made is that Marc never actually referenced lower media pricing.
No, it's true.
So
if there's anyone in the world that could flex their muscles
with his $6 billion media spend, 7, right? But he never mentioned that. He never mentioned pricing or costs or savings. He never mentioned reduction of media charges, agency charges. His only reference to kind of pricing, if you like, is in his ambition to increase agencies' kind of remuneration moving forward for value,
based on the value that they create and to pay them fairly.
That's right. And so we've referenced the two types of advertiser out there, and this is a business that sees media as a real lever for growth, and importantly as their agency partners to help them drive that media growth.
No, exactly, and that's what I think is so exciting about these kind of messages, is because it just clear distinction between those companies that see media as a cost to the business, and then the chain of behaviours that creates, which is to see your agencies as suppliers, and therefore then the supply chain is just supplying a commodity, and the sole objective there is to reduce the cost. And a lot of advertisers are still in that. It's hard to break out of that mindset, but we see more and more shifting, and Marc helps to do this, is those businesses which see their media budgets as an investment in growth, and therefore can regard their agencies as strategic partners, deeply invested in the business, reward them for growth, reward them for value creation, and then you start to see media in terms of as a lever for growth rather than as a commodity. Everything that Marc is saying is on the kind of the right side of that line, because he's saying, come and meet our requirements, which are perfectly reasonable, like they're common sense expectations. Meet our requirements, hold yourselves to higher standards, bring some help us bring transparency and help us rebuild trust, act as strategic partners, and we will reward you for great performance.
Absolutely.
That is an advertiser obsessed here. And it's a shame because there's noise at the moment. The agencies out there will be probably in the middle of some pitches, that we know of, like some, $1 billion plus pitches, which are racing to the bottom, using, e-auctions, blind auction technology, asking agencies to bid blind against each other, not just for media pricing, which is a bit crazy because it's not something that they control anyway, because it's not a commodity, which misunderstands, and their fees. So having to deliver the cheapest possible price, the crappiest possible service for the cheapest possible fee, and then on payment terms. We know of examples of people running e-auctions, blind e-auctions for payment terms, extending into hundreds of days, which is just insane. That is a race to the bottom, and that produces the wrong kind of result.
Absolutely, and those are the type of advertisers that agencies should be pushing up against, and not accepting those kind of terms. And I'm hoping that Marc's speech and his continued kind of narrative around this will inspire other brands and advertisers that perhaps currently sit within that side of the channel, to be kind of more inclined to think about media as a lever for growth.
And I think if anything, it's just creating a far clearer distinction between advertisers that the agency community kind of want to work with, and we'll see as opportunities and those which, as you say, they should kind of be pushing back to just try and change behaviour on the advertiser side. It's got to be something that comes out of this, I think.
Absolutely.
So that's stage 3 of Marc's speech. I think there's more to run this year, but the message is clear and it's really simple, is that marketers should expect their agency community or their agency to be partners and drive growth and obsess about that. And let's reduce the layers and the complexity and really align the whole supply chain behind the needs of marketers. It's never been clearer. Okay, that's all for this week. Thank you very much for watching. Please give us a thumbs up if you like what we're doing. Bye for now.
Have a good weekend.